Long, long ago, in the days when people traveled from village to village on dusty roads, there lived two jewelry sellers. Their names were Seri and Kessi. Both men carried wooden boxes filled with colorful jewelry, bright necklaces, shiny bangles, and sparkling earrings. These were not real gold, but they looked beautiful and made many villagers happy. Every day, the two sellers walked from village to village, selling their jewelry from house to house. Although Seri and Kessi knew each other, they were not friends. This was because their hearts were very different. Seri was clever but greedy. He always looked for ways to trick people and earn more money. But Kessi was kind and honest. He believed that doing the right thing was more important than becoming rich. One day, Seri decided to visit a small village called Totu, which was located on the other side of a wide river. In that quiet village stood a tiny old house. In that poor little house lived an old grandmother and her young granddaughter. They were very poor. That morning, the little girl saw Seri walking through the village with his jewelry box on his head. She ran to her grandmother and said, "Grandmother, may I please have some bangles? They are so beautiful." The grandmother sighed gently and stroked the girl's hair. "My child," she said softly, "we do not have any money." The little girl thought for a moment. Then she suddenly remembered something. "Grandmother," she said, "do you remember the old metal bowl in the kitchen? Grandfather once said it came from our rich ancestors. Maybe we can give that bowl to the jewelry seller." The grandmother knew the bowl was old and dirty and probably worthless. But she did not want to break the little girl's heart. So she waited for the seller to come to their house. Soon Seri arrived. The little girl ran out happily and asked to see the jewelry. Seri placed his wooden box on the ground and opened it. Inside were colorful necklaces and shiny bangles. The girl quickly chose a set of bright bangles. Then she looked at Seri and said, "Sir, we do not have money, but we have an old metal bowl we can give you." Seri frowned but said, "Bring it and let me see." The grandmother brought the bowl and handed it to him. The bowl looked very old and was covered with dirt and black smoke stains. Seri examined it carefully. Then he secretly scratched the surface of the bowl with a small knife. Suddenly, he saw something shining underneath. It was gold. The bowl was actually pure gold, hidden under years of dirt and smoke. Seri's eyes widened with surprise, but he quickly hid his excitement. Instead, he made a disgusted face. "This bowl is useless," he said angrily. He threw the bowl on the ground, snatched back the bangles, and walked away. But inside his mind, he was thinking, "I will come back later and take it for almost nothing." The little girl was heartbroken. She looked sadly at the bowl lying on the floor. A little while later, another jewelry seller entered the village. It was Kessi. The girl saw him coming and ran to her grandmother. "Grandmother," she said, "shall we try asking this seller?" The grandmother hesitated. "Did you forget what the other seller said?" she asked. But the girl replied, "This man looks kind." The grandmother nodded. "Very well," she said. When Kessi arrived, the girl showed him the old bowl and asked if she could trade it for some bangles. Kessi held the bowl and examined it carefully. He noticed the scratch mark. When he looked closely, he realized the truth. The bowl was pure gold. Kessi was amazed. He looked at the grandmother and said kindly, "Mother, this bowl is very valuable. It is pure gold. I do not have enough to give you for something so precious." The grandmother smiled gently. "My son," she said, "we are very poor. Keeping this old bowl does not help us. Give us whatever you can." Kessi thought for a moment. Then he did something extraordinary. He gave the girl his entire jewelry box. He gave the grandmother his gold ring, and he placed all the money in his pocket into her hands. "This is all I have," he said honestly. "Tomorrow I will travel to the city and sell this bowl to a goldsmith. Then I will bring you the rest of the money." With a warm smile, Kessi thanked them and left the village. Some time later, Seri returned to the house. He pretended to be kind and said, "I have changed my mind. Give me that useless bowl and I will give the girl a bangle." But the grandmother shook her head. "No," she said. Seri suddenly noticed the little girl playing happily with an entire box of jewelry. His face turned pale. He realized what had happened. In his anger and greed, Seri ran out of the village. He ran as fast as he could toward the river. Soon he reached the riverbank. Far across the water, he saw a small boat. On that boat were Kessi and the boatman, slowly paddling across the wide river. Seri shouted loudly, "Come back! Come back! That bowl is mine!" But the boat was already too far away. Seri screamed in frustration. He beat his chest with both hands and shouted again and again, "My gold! My gold!" But his heart was filled with so much anger and greed that suddenly he collapsed onto the ground. And there, beside the river, Seri's life came to an end. Meanwhile, the honest seller Kessi continued his journey across the river. His heart was peaceful, knowing he had done the right thing. And from that day on, the grandmother and the little girl lived a happier life.